probably a rhetorical question, but Zoe, who was very literal-minded, said, "Call the AA, RAC, something like that." He scowled. "Do I look like the sort of man who's a member of the AA?" Zoe considered. She hadn't thought there was a typical look to a member of a roadside rescue service, but as she studied him more closely, she noticed his curly, slightly too long hair was actually a very dark red. He had green eyes, and a curving mouth, and a large, slightly hooked nose. She couldn't decide if he was very handsome or really quite ugly, but she did have to admit he was extremely sexy. He looked like the kind of man who assumed he'd never break down. "What am I to do?" he said again, rhetorically. He triggered the devil in Zoe. She knew he was expecting her not to answer, or just to offer to go for help, but she decided to tease him. She felt slightly lightheaded. "Well, there are quite a lot of branches by the gate. Perhaps we could pile them up under the wheel and you could reverse enough to turn." In spite of her desire to provoke him, it was a genuine suggestion. "You're a practical little thing, aren't you?" he said, making it seem as if it was bad to be practical. But he set off down the lane in the direction she'd pointed, and then called imperiously over his shoulder, "Come on, I'll need you." Infuriated at his manner, little thing, yet pleased to be doing something active so her nerves about the upcoming competition could be worked off, Zoe followed him. But as she went, she chided herself. This could get her into serious trouble. She'd worked out who he was by now. Who else would be so close to Summerby who wasn't going there? And this man, arrogant and argumentative, had to be one of the judges. He could never be a mere contestant in a cookery competition. And as she knew the other judges by sight from their television appearances, this could only be Gideon Irving. He was a well-known name in the world of food, as a critic, food writer, and entrepreneur. His writing style was acerbic and often cruel, but he loved to discover new chefs, and had brought a lot of young talent to the notice of the restaurant-going public. She hadn't been exactly rude, but she had lent a bit in that direction. She wouldn't win the competition now, and wouldn't being alone with one of the judges, however innocently, be against the rules? Why, oh why, hadn't she just stayed lying in the grass, listening to the larks? She ran to catch him up. They found some biggish logs as well as the branches. Some clearing had been done nearby. Most of the tree trunks had been removed, but quite a lot remained. "I'll take some of the larger bits of timber and you bring what you can," he said. She nodded and began gathering up the bits of birch, fir, and beech that lay about. "If this doesn't work," she said, finding it hard to keep up with him even though his arms were full of logs, "we could go to the house and ask them to send a tractor or something." "We could," Gideon Irving agreed, "but we'll try this first." He didn't quite smile at her, but the speculative look he shot her indicated he liked what he saw. Zoe wasn't her own biggest fan, but her short curly brown hair, small frame, pale skin and freckles hadn't given her any complexes. She knew she could scrub up fairly well. Only today she wasn't scrubbed up at all. She was wearing her jeans, plimmies, and a striped Breton top. She never wore much makeup, but currently wasn't wearing any. She had blue eyes and dark lashes, and knew her size made her look younger than 27. "Okay." Together they piled the wood into the ditch, building a platform for the overhanging wheel. They didn't speak much, but Zoe was enjoying herself. She liked problem-solving, and when she spotted some stones that had fallen out of a wall, went to get them. Her thanks was a glance and a grunt, but somehow she felt rewarded. He did have amazing eyes. She felt a flutter of excitement. "The question is, do we have to do this all over again in the other ditch?" he asked. "Yes," she said. She had been considering this while she worked. "But now we've got the stones, it won't take so long." Zoe was filthy and fairly sweaty by the time they'd finished. He had long since thrown off his jacket, and his white t-shirt was covered in mud. "Can you drive?" he demanded. "Yes." "Follow simple instructions?" "Yes."